Hello, this is your host, Ray Johnson, and welcome back to Instagram Christianity. Today I have with me lovely lady that I call my angel, Mallory Hilton. And I have her here because, in addition to how Abigail and Megan talked about what it's like being a modern day woman with these Christianity traditional ideals and trying to balance that, I also wanted to get her perspective on her health journey and that aspect of Christianity where it can be really hard to go through each and every day seeing people that are very healthy and whether it's obvious you have something going on with you or not, and seeing them live a far different life. And then you're thinking, God, I love you, but why do you have to make me feel I have to be that much stronger to just get through the day? So, to elaborate on that point by asking you a question, I'm curious, since I've seen you post on Instagram your struggle with sports, specifically basketball, and your health days where even if it's predictable or not, you just feel so drained and you can't do something like that you love for a hobby. How has that been recently in the sense of medical discoveries you've worked with on your doctors where you felt like those days are frequent or not, or has it been stagnant the same? Like, how's that been?
So I feel like even though, my health in general is kind of unpredictable, I'm sort of in a routine where I know what it's going to look like mostly every day. And I do still go to all my appointments and stuff, but they haven't found anything that can help. And they say they're kind of running out of medications. So in a way, it sounds so bad. It sounds like I gave up, but it's just I've become really accepting. I feel like of my illness lately, since I know there's not much left that they can do. So I wake up and I kind of know what it's going to look like, even though it's still a struggle and really hard. It kind of has been staying the same. Some days there's flare-ups, some can get worse, but I know it won't get better. So either it stays the same or it can get kind of worse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, completely. I get that.
Yeah. But then I'll still play basketball because it's my favorite thing ever. Even if I'm on a flare-up day, I just refuse to be sick. I'm like, I don't have time for this, and I play anyways.
It's like, illness, you think you're cute though, but I'm gonna pretend you're out here.
Exactly. I do that sometimes, which I don't know if that's a good thing, but I just pretend sometimes that I don't have it because I don't have time for it.
I love that. I honestly admire your mindset with how you're not letting it conquer you, because I'm sure there's days where you think that's definitely the case, and I'm proud of you for having such a healthy outlook on dealing with that.
Thank you. Yeah, it literally is the mindset. If I didn't have the positive mindset that I choose to have, because I think it's a choice, I would not be living my every day in this way. So it really just takes you choosing. I know it's easier said than done, but it's a hard life lesson, but it's the best thing I've ever learned in my life is just choose the positive part, because negative thoughts, it's not going to help you live your life whatsoever. Especially if you can't change what you're going through anyways, why would you choose the negative side if you could be positive instead? So.
Preach. And speaking of choosing, I love how you brought that up, because they always say whether you're a man, female, boy, girl, as far as maturity with how much you've aged through life, there's always this consistent thing in the Bible of choosing to lay your burdens on Christ and choosing to be content even when life is not worthy of being content from just initially thinking of it. Yeah. So even when you feel really good or really bad, how do you go to God and still be grateful for the life you have despite not feeling it in a particular moment?
Yeah, that's a really good but very big question. I definitely didn't have the answer at first, because I feel like first I had to accept that this is happening. Really what it started with is accepting it. And I remembered that God gave me this life anyways. It's actually not mine. And then I also remember that this earth is not all we have. Heaven's coming, and my body, I'll have a new body, completely transformed, no pain. So I accept the illness. I know better's coming, but for the present, for now, how I actually give that up, I have to ask him every day for strength, and I just believe that he gives it to me. But then I also have honest prayers and conversations with God, like not just, oh, help me, like thanks, like that's a great prayer, but say, God, this hurts. This really hurts right now. I can't do this, but I know you can, so please help me. Like, there's nothing, I feel like sometimes people say, you have to be strong, like, if you're struggling like that, then you're not really close with God. No, you can actually be very close with him and still hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to have those prayers with him all the time, like, I can't do this, God, this is way too much, I'm really hurting, please help. So basically, I lay it down every single day to him, and he helps me.
I love the way you said that. Because I don't know what made me hark back to this memory, but I had a small group leader with how you described when you're in a moment of distress, that he says, whether it's a praiseful prayer or you really need his help, you can do what's called an arrow prayer, where it's just a little simple message. You don't have to be very eloquent or do a whole soliloquy about how you articulate your needs. He already knows ahead of time anyhow, so just simplifying and stating in a short manner is just as effective as a really huge, Psalm from David type prayer. So I like that you brought that up. Also, I am curious on, because we're both pretty prominent on Instagram as far as activity and things, what you've noticed about people, and I pretty much ask this every episode, who portray themselves just by simply a bio, Bible verse quote, to be perceived as more Christian than they actually are as far as the straight content on their feed.
Wow. Okay. That is a very bold statement. It's so true. So are you saying, like, some people will put something there, but they're not actually living that? And, like, have I noticed that? Or...
For those, whether they're male or female, and I know because there's more people, things like Tinder, where you get more matches of female, so then also parallels into Instagram with Christianity, where people will put a Bible verse in their bio, but then they're taking pictures of, let's say, them having an all-night binger till they black out or whatever, where they're doing silly things that is a consistent pattern in truly their lifestyle instead of what they're trying to portray themselves as.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that, and I have to make sure, catch myself, because just because there's a verse in your bio, it can be written on Instagram, that's great, but it's actually written on your heart, maybe not. So you need to make sure that your actions line up with it. We just talked about this in church on Sunday, a sermon about how whether you realize it or not, you're actually influencing somebody. People are watching you, even if you don't think they are. And as Christians, we have a responsibility to, especially for new believers, to show them what does walking with Christ look like. So if your life on a Friday night is different, completely different than it is on Sunday morning, that's definitely a problem. You need to step back, examine your choices. That's what they were telling us to do on Sunday. Because you don't want to be a stumbling block to a new believer or just someone that doesn't know Jesus, because you might be the only Bible they ever read. When they look at your life, do they see Jesus or not? If not, that's not good, because then you're not really walking with him. If you're leading astray, you're walking down the wrong road. So
I love a lot of the phrases you said in there, such as it being written on your heart and you being the Bible, because I know that with the latter especially, that could be misinterpreted of oh, you're the Bible now. No, it's meaning your actions and where your heart and soul truly lie. So I love those analogies. That's awesome, because I'm a very visual person, so I'm very metaphorical, and that's great that you are too.
Me too. Yeah, it's very helpful and very convicting to hear that. Because it's easy to look at other people and be like, oh, wow, look what they're doing, but you also have to examine your own choices. So that was a good reminder.
Oh, for sure. For sure. No, because we both have boyfriends. When it comes to dating, and I know there's examples in the Bible of when a significant other was not a Christian, and then either during the process of the marriage formalities or after marriage they became saved. But what are your thoughts on trying to find a good Christian man? And if you think, even though I didn't personally use them, apps for dating, or however you do find someone, how do you have discretion once meeting that person of oh yeah, they line up with how I view Jesus. And if they don't, how you approach that in a way where you're not coming across too judgmental.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're talking about, like having the equally yoked relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is actually a big part of my whole like testimony of God working on me, because like in high school, I was obsessed. I was like, nope, I'm gonna find a boyfriend, maybe my future husband. This is gonna be great. But I wasn't even that strong in my walk with God, and I feel like I was like, no, whoever it is, as long as they're nice, blah blah, okay. Like I didn't have very high standards, and I didn't even ask God. I didn't say, God, will you please help me find this person? It was me in my own, I don't know, what's it called? I was just being selfish, I guess, and I didn't include God in it. And He's supposed to be in every part of your life. So, in high school and then in college, I had all the dating apps, okay? I will gladly admit it, because it's actually funny now. I had all the, because I was like, nope, future husband, Christian one, let's go, let's roll, let's find this man. So, I had a little verse in the bio, but guess what I wasn't really doing at the beginning of college? Walking close with God. And so even if they didn't have a verse, or if they did have a verse, I was like, I'm not even going to ask about the God thing. we're just going to go with it. So I was not being serious, because I just wanted somebody to, like, I don't know, fill the void in my heart. But I did not include God again. I should have asked Him, please help me find someone. But what I did was go seek for myself. And I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, but make sure, like, if you go on the apps, especially, include God in it. He won't bless something if you don't ask Him to be in it. So that was a huge mistake. But like when you've talked to somebody, yeah, you want to be like, are you a Christian? Okay, how's your life? Like, I didn't ask any good questions, but I know you can't just jump in like right away. I don't know. It is hard to find the balance when you first meet someone. Like, you go on a first date or something. How are you supposed to be like, ask those deep, serious questions? But honestly, you should just go for it, because you're trying to get to know them anyways. Just ask. I know that sounds dumb, but I feel like if I went back now, I would just go ahead and be like, can I ask you, like, how's your walk with God? Because if they're thrown off by that question and they don't like that, oh, there it goes. That's the red flag walking away. Because if they're turned away by you asking that kind of a question, they should be excited and say, oh, I love God. You love Him too. So ask the right questions. Don't go seek it out yourself without including God. I don't know if that answers the question, but I'm just looking back at my old self and like, you were dumb. So, because I didn't include God. That's your biggest mistake ever.
No, I totally applaud your answer. And even though I didn't have the apps or anything, I always met them in person. I feel that I was also just as deceived in the sense of catfishing, of who they portray themselves to be at first. And then once getting to know them, I'm thinking, okay, I'm a hopeless romantic, and I fell for the fact that I want to be loved, and you just loved the idea of me and not all the facets of me. So, adios now. But of course, for me, I'm a very patient, tolerant person when it comes to relationships. When it comes to people being silly, driving on the road and stuff, I'm not patient. And when I'm looking forward to things, but when it comes to people in certain circumstances, like friendships, relationships, for whatever reason, I turned that switch on. So it took me a while. The shortest I ever dated a person was 6 months, and that happened 2 times over with different people. So I was never the kind to just easily give up on something unless I just truly could tell from looking back, yeah, this ain't gonna work, chief. So, and speaking of patience, it made me think to ask you about whether you have high or low tolerance in that category yourself. How do you try to implement how God is patient with you and not judge yourself too much with being your own worst critic about pretty much anything in life? It doesn't have to just be health or scholastics or whatever. Just how do you remind yourself that He's patient so you can be more patient with yourself?
Okay, that's very good, because I feel like I'm really self-critical and doubt myself, but I just have to pray about it, even though it sounds like such a simple thing. Like, if you're not talking to God about this stuff, yeah, you gotta ask it. So I say, remind me that you're God and I'm not, and He's the one that died for me to save me from everything. I don't have to be covered in shame all the time, because He already died for me. When it comes to the patience, I have to read my Bible every day, or I won't be patient with myself, because I'm human. So I guess prayer and Bible reading, which sounds so basic, but it's so true. And he always shows up when you read the Bible. He always shows up and reminds you of those things like every day. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, just because it's basic and sounds simplistic doesn't mean it's not any more or less valid. So I like that you're saying it may be, but so what? It still works. It's proven.
Yeah. True.
So I know it may seem to a lot of adults looking back on their lives and even of the lives of their children, whatnot, that high school and college can kind of be lumped into the same period of time in the sense of youthful discovery and innocence in the sense of trying to figure out who you are and making mistakes and all that. But since we're so close to finishing out college and also closer to high school age than we will ever be for the rest of our lives, which just sounds so aging, but
I don't like that.
I know. What is something about high school that you noticed was so different with your walk with God versus the more freedoms when you came into your college era?
Okay. What is different about my walk in high school versus college? Well, one huge factor is that I went to a Christian high school, like a small Christian high school where you had like chapel every Tuesdays and Thursdays. And even though I'm glad they like implemented those things and they would pray before every class, like, those are good.
Mm-hmm.
You are surrounded by all like the things of God all day. But when you get to college and none of that's there, it's like you have to choose. Which in a way, I feel like that's actually more beautiful because I have to be disciplined and choose God every day instead of being like reminded. Not that it's bad they did that at all. It's just that's the difference. I feel like since going to a Christian, like where they really not pushed it, but kind of did. Because a lot of people I know from high school, I don't really know like talk to them anymore like that, but they seem to have strayed away a lot and don't know God anymore, which is ironic since we went to a Christian school. But maybe if people are surrounded by like the prayer and the chapels, you might take it for granted. So coming to college, like, is so much more free, which is dangerous and good. It depends on your choice.
Mm-hmm.
You have to choose God or not choose God. It's up to you. So that was a big difference. And then, well, having more time in college is good because I can actually go to small groups and like all these things. In high school, more restricted time, I guess. So yeah, those are like the main difference.
I love that. That's very well said.
Thank you.
And I brought this up on a couple of podcasts ago with Megan and Abigail, but I also want to ask you, since we're both such target audience and millennials and even those younger than us, for Instagram and Snapchat, all these different media platforms, to have such a high stake and investment with celebrities and to idolize and worship them. So how do you balance your love for an artistic appreciation for their craft and also not have that consume your life and to still have Christ in your life?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a convicting question. I wish I just had like a really great answer, but it's definitely something I struggle with sometimes because I feel like I compare myself to people a lot, even if I shouldn't. And so I want to, be like this celebrity or be like this random person on TikTok. Like, why do I want that so bad? You have to have your identity, like, know who you are so you don't get wrapped up and consumed in who somebody else is. Because God doesn't want that for you. He wants you to be you, which there's nothing wrong with, like, following someone and, like, admiring all that. But it's dangerous when it turns into jealousy. So I have to surrender that to God. Like, every single aspect of my life I give to Him because I can't do it on my own. So one thing, I will literally, this is so weird, I unfollow people if I feel like their actions or their whatever is influencing me too much. Even though it's like, I don't really want to follow them, but I kind of feel convicted sometimes. Like, let's take a step back. Their life is not your life. Get out of their life. So until I can like recuperate, come back, if that makes sense. So yeah, sometimes social media breaks or just even unfollowing someone can help your mindset a little bit better.
That's really good advice because I feel since you do become in such a habit of having such a grand investment into someone's life of that status, and wealth bracket, you just get way too parasocial, and then you're like, wait a second, I probably should unfollow them because now it's more of a fan service, maybe could be stalkerish level in the sense of just keeping that in tune with their lives from
Yeah.
that anonymous distance. Because even with your name displayed on the platform, they don't know who you are, so you might as well be a complete stranger that's nameless. So it's really interesting that you brought it up and answered the way that you did, those different points. And I really appreciate all that. So, my final question is I wanted you to have a chance to actually ask me something if you wanted to ask me anything.
Okay. It's hard to think on the spot because I don't have questions.
You're fine.
Like about anything that has to do with like what we talked about.
It could be about that or anything outside the scope of what we brought up that's kind of touched your heart or whatever. I'm judgment free. I'm like Planet Fitness, just whatever's on your mind.
Okay. I want to talk about like probably something to do with God. Like in general, how is your walk with God? But then also, how does it kind of like what you're talking about high school, college thing? How does it look different for you here, like at college, that it did in high school? And like, has your walk changed or stayed kind of the same? I just want to know about your walk with God.
Awesome. Well, I definitely think to hark on what you said earlier about the limited time in high school versus college, I didn't really have that much of a drastic jump, only because since I was homeschooled and going to co-ops once a week since 8th grade, where I met the wonderful Megan and then later on her sister Abigail, she kept me sane, honestly. There were some very stereotypical homeschoolers in those little niche 6 people groups that I'm like, if you weren't there, I'd probably be in an asylum right now. But um, with that aside, I think I was starting to notice, due to such a drastic change from middle school to high school, with how I was in a class of 20, so I felt more of a buffer of other people answering versus me, who realized, okay, I guess I'm gonna be an ambivert now because I have no choice but to speak up since no one else is, instead of just solely introverted. And I think that in especially this recent year, I have truly found confidence in myself to where logistically I knew the difference between arrogance and confidence and more self centeredness and assuming you're the bee's knees and the best thing since sliced bread. But I think in high school I was still really struggling with my confidence because I never wanted to come across as self righteous or that I felt a need to compare myself. Because sometimes when mom and I would talk about things, such as me singing or whatever, and she would hear someone on a video or TV show, and she said, "Oh, you're a much better singer than her," and I'm like, I'm not thinking about that. I don't care about being better than someone just because I'm listening or watching something or viewing it in real life, even if I'm going to a concert or whatever. But I think I compared myself a lot more when it came to social media back then than I do now, especially. I mean, I still struggled with that all the way through sophomore, junior year of college, but it was a lot less simply because I was filling myself with extracurriculars. But with homeschooling in high school, despite how much I did do freedom wise with golf or traveling to DC or California by myself and those kinds of things to meet up with political groups or a leadership institution in DC, I really didn't find myself on social media as much other than to just make connections with people. But I definitely still even catch myself today being influenced ad wise by celebrities marketing things, whether it's their own brands or other ones they're hired on for. And that influences me more than their actual lives, other than maybe Selena Gomez. I'm always just gonna follow every project she does. But there's just my walk with God has definitely changed a lot. I'm not judging myself nearly as much as I have felt like I have been by churches where I would go once a week, and then they would have this environment of, oh, you should come 2 to 3 times, or you're not as much of a Christian, because see how noticeably closer we are? You're not part of that now. So I'm thinking, excuse
Wow,
me? Sorry
that's so bad.
that I'm trying to learn at least once a week about God and my relationship with Him and others within your community or outside. So when I'm doing volunteer work or these other things I'm really invested in, I can show Him. But I'd rather influence other communities than just stay in our bubble, but whatever, you know. So I think I've not let things like that bother me as much now. It's more of just reflecting upon it and thinking, they were stupid for making me think I had to participate in that way or whatever. But back then, it really influenced me and made me feel that much more insecure with God. But now, it's not an issue at all. I just have my own internal insecurities I work on, but it's not influenced by other people anymore, so that's good.
That makes sense. I hate that they told you that you aren't as good of a Christian if you don't go blah blah how many times.
I mean, it wasn't verbatim stated that like that to me. It's just the environment and the vibe conveyed that in a way where it was just really obvious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people should never make people feel like that, because that's when they get turned away from Christianity. A lot of times is because of the church. Like, church hurt is real, but and then they think, oh, this is what Jesus looks like because the Christians are doing this, but that's not true. You just have to, I guess, figure out a different place to go.
Yeah. I mean, Pharisees do be being a problem.
Yes. Really.
Just because it's a biblical word and term for people back then doesn't mean it's still not modernized these days.
They still exist. It's
Yep.
sad, but it's good to hear about your walk with him, though. I always like to ask people that question because you can encourage everyone, and you're not alone. Like, in all the thoughts, all the things you say, you're never by yourself, which is great.
Yeah, and that's also me echoing that as an only child. So you're never really alone, despite the loneliness you may feel from being the only one your age in a household. You Gucci, you got God. Better than any brand out there.
Yes, only follow him, not TikTokers.
Yeah.
You can press the follow button, just don't love them more than Jesus, please.
Yes. That's a great note to end it on.
Perfect.
I truly enjoyed your company and your words of wisdom, and I hope everyone listening has as well. And stay tuned for next week, and I shall see you guys then.